Hi guys, back for part 2. So we were just talking about chime candles. Usually they have one color, so they are usually red or white, because usually they're for Christmas time. But keep an eye out for them. I find them all the time at Goodwill. I just bought some yesterday, I think, or the day before, that had chime candles in them. They have big bags usually of candles that they put like $2 or $3 on, and there's 20 candles in there. Get them all. Yeah, I use little tea light candles. I use big taper candles. It doesn't matter what size they are. We'll go over those correspondences later. Let me keep going though. Okay, so candles. Absolutely candles. That's the biggest, easiest one as far as I'm concerned. Salt lamps can be used for fire. A dragon, salamander, lizard, any of those representations, reptiles are normally put under the fire element category. So if you have little representations of lizards, go right ahead and use that on your dragons, a dragon statue. Use that for a fire element, no problem. A fire bowl. Now, a fire bowl can be a cauldron. When I started out, I didn't have anything to put a fire into. Look for a brass bowl. When you go to Goodwill, look for a brass bowl. I have tons of what I would consider to be cauldrons now. This one I found at a Goodwill, and it has the zodiac symbols around it, and it's brass. See how it has the feet on there? If you're lucky, you will find one with feet on it. Doesn't matter what else is on there, but the feet make it stand up so the heat part doesn't touch your table. So if you happen to get one that doesn't have feet on it, that's okay too. Just put down something that makes it so that heat isn't directly on your table. Either a pot holder, or a fireproof, a stone plate, or what else? A large flat rock. Something that is not going to catch on fire and burn. When you get a fire safe thing, the one thing that you will want is charcoal discs. Charcoal discs are this big around, and actually my camera is on my incense box, so unfortunately I can't show you right now, but they can be bought at any witchy shop, at any pagan shop, at any metaphysical shop, and online at any of those kinds of stores also. If you do not have them, you can use regular charcoal that you would put in your grill at home and break it up into smaller pieces. So hit it with a rock, whatever. Break it up into smaller pieces and use the smaller pieces. The only thing with getting the discs is they're easier to light, or at least they're supposed to be. I find if you keep them in a sealed container, that makes it easier. Do not leave them out in the open. Once you use, they come in packs of 10 or 12. And if you open it and you don't use all of them, which, excuse me, you won't use all of them right away, put them in a Ziploc or something so that not a lot of air gets to it, because then it makes it harder to light them. So, any kind of fireproof bowl that you can then burn herbs, you can burn incense, you can burn loose incense, you can, burn paper. A lot of times in the very beginning, my spells were my intentions written down on a piece of paper, and I burned it in my fireproof bowl. So a very simple spell would be, okay, goddess, I am ready to let go of my obsession with my weight, and I am just going to let that go to you and do the best I can, but I'm not going to obsess on it anymore. So I'm going to write on a piece of paper my obsession with my weight and light it on fire and put it into my fire bowl. Be very careful when you're doing this. Either you're doing this outside, or you're doing it in an area that is contained enough that you know either it's a big enough fire bowl, or it's a covered thing, or you actually have a cauldron with a cover on it. because you don't want to light your house on fire, peoples. Come on, be smart about this. We're all adults, hopefully, or close to it. That is a very simple spell to do in the beginning. And for everyone, for seasoned witches. I've been doing this quite a while now, and I still do that sometimes. Usually I'll add something else to help that intention, but we'll talk about that too. Okay, the last thing, and I did not grab any of my athames, is a ritual knife. Ritual knives do not, oh, that's not the last thing. It can also be a wand, which I'll talk about in a second. So ritual knives do not have to be sharp. When I started out, I got a letter opener and I glued some jewels onto a letter opener. And I think I still have one of those around. Very simple and easy. It can be a pretty knife that you get at like the flea market. Sometimes sells those really pretty knives that, all right, come on, goddess, I'm glad you're around me, but I'm trying to do a video. That flea markets sell and stuff that you can spend $10 usually and get like an ornate kind of knife. That's fine. It doesn't have to be sharp. It can be if you want to also use it to cut herbs and stuff like that, but it doesn't have to be. A wand. I'll give you an example of some of my wands from when I first started out. Okay, so first of all, you do not always have to go natural, although I would recommend, especially in the beginning, trying to get as much as you can from the land that's around you or from the earth, someplace you go to visit, whatever. But I found this at, I'm sure, a Goodwill or something for $1, and it's a little kid's wand, but works very well. An athame is something to direct the energy. So when you're reading up on opening up a circle, when you're doing a ritual or a spell, you open up a circle. You're directing that energy, opening up that circle, creating that protective circle with a wand. Can be your finger. If you really don't have any way to get a wand, if you don't have any way to get a branch, this can be a wand. This was when I first started out. My sons and I just picked up branches from our yard, and I still have their wands. Made a wand, and this particular son, he is a fire element, and so he burned his a little bit on the top and bottom, and this was his wand, which can represent fire. My first wand that I made was a branch from the lilac tree at my grandmother's house. I used some copper wire at the end to attach a little piece of amethyst at the end, and I burned the goddess, that's the goddess symbol, a pentacle, and the triple moon on it. Now, I've had this wand for, oh my goodness, I don't know, there's my memory, probably 8 years, I bet. Maybe more, 10. And I still use it a lot. It's a great thing to create energy lines with. It's a great wand. So that can be a representation of fire. Okay, and then for spirit, you want some representation of spirit, whatever that is to you. To me, it's a pentacle. So it is a 5-pointed star with a circle around it. To me, that represents all 5 elements and spirit. And my first one, I was trying to find it, and of course I can't find it. My first pentacle I had was a tree slice that I had my husband draw a nice straight pentacle on it, and that went in the center of my altar. I now have a ceramic one that has a candle in it and has a place to put a stick of incense. But when you start out, whatever you want. Another thing that should go on your altar is some kind of a rock that you paint a pentacle or a peace sign or whatever represents spirit to you. The god and goddess should be represented on your altar in some way, or just the goddess. Again, some people do not want to recognize the god in their pantheon, in their section of how they believe, and that's fine too. But if you recognize a god, you should recognize a god and goddess entity, and there are a million ways to do that. Again, paint on a rock, use a tree slice. Here's a rock painted that I use for a goddess sometimes. You can print out a picture that you like. Now this one, the frame is broken because I used a really, really cheap frame from the thrift store. I think I paid $1 for this cheapest frame, but look, I printed out a picture that I like. This is actually just a paper printout. If you look really closely, you could tell that it's not in, the best shape, this piece of paper that I printed out, but it's beautiful, and I liked this representation of the goddess because she seemed very powerful to me. I used that on my altar for a long time. Actually, it was just on my altar. So that's an easy thing to do. Draw a picture of the goddess. Again, use whatever goddess symbols mean goddess to you, but this is a very recognizable symbol of the goddess that I put on my wand. The god symbol can be a circle with 2 horns on it. It can be the god symbol. Print out a picture, paint it on a rock, on a tree slice. You can look for statues and stuff. It took me a long time to get statues of the god and goddess, so for a long time I would look at thrift stores and stuff. This was a paper mache deer that I found at the thrift store that has antlers, and I used this as a god representation for a long time. Deer and stags, especially around Christmas time, you'll find you should be able to find stuff at your local thrift shop very easily for the god especially. A lot of times they will have Mary statues, which you can use for the goddess. I have I started out as a Catholic in my life. I have an old wooden gorgeous Mary statue that I use sometimes still as a goddess representation. So the key is to really look around in your environment at what you have, and then be aware when you start visiting these thrift shops, be aware of what you're looking for. So you look around and say, is there anything in here that I can use on my altar that I feel, oh, that's a good representation of this or that. I'm just going to go through what I have left here, as we're at 13 minutes. Okay, so if you've seen any of my videos, you have seen, like, this was $3.99. I believe it was a yellow tag, so I paid $1.50. And this is a brand new, like, tablecloth that I can use as an altar cloth. Altar cloths are so easy. I cannot sew for nothing, but I can put on glue on a piece of fabric that I find at Goodwill that has frayed edges, and just glue, use fabric glue and glue the edges so that they won't be fraying. This week was Purple Tag Week, and this was $1.99, so I paid $1 for a scarf that is perfect for a fall altar. It's just a square with a whole bunch of leaves on it. That's a great altar cloth for fall, and I paid $1. So again, just keep an eye out. What is it that is at my thrift store? What is it that I have at home that I could use? A piece of cloth, a scarf that I'm not using, a sheet, a white sheet. It doesn't have to, be a color. You can use an old white sheet and draw symbols on it with permanent marker. What else? So, jars and all that kind of stuff. These I got at Goodwill. They are glass, and they are a whole set of little herb jars. I think I paid $1.50 on sale for the whole thing. What else? Oh, this is good. Little offering dishes. At some point, if you want to have offering dishes on your altar, to the god and goddess, or to just the goddess, or to the spirit, or whatever you want to believe, you may want to use little bowls. I started looking for little bowls a long time ago and started finding all kinds of little offering dishes. Almost everything I've gotten is from Goodwill, guys. Keep that in mind. I don't buy a whole lot that's new. These are little clay from Mexico or in South America. Little clay dishes that have tops to them. And look at it, it's got a little chip on this side. So what? When it's sitting on my altar full of salt for the god, or rose petals for the goddess, or whatever you think, goes towards that. Here's a little pot. Again, this was, says made in India. It's a little stone pot with a top. That makes a great little offering dish. A little ceramic bowl, a big bowl. It doesn't have to be little. Whatever you have around the house, whatever you find in nature. You might find a piece of wood that you want to use a drill and hollow out a little bit for an offering dish. I found most of my chalices. I'm trying to think, no, I did not buy. Even the chalice, I have a chalice that has a pentacle, a silver pentacle on it. I didn't buy that either. I traded with somebody for it. I have a silver chalice. I know I got this from Goodwill or Savers at some point, paid a couple bucks for it. This one is a white goblet chalice. It has oak leaves on it. So I use it when we get towards fall usually. When we're talking about the Oak King or Yule. I've used it at Yule. We're talking about the Oak King. I have probably paid $1 or $2. Anything that has a stem on it can look like your chalice, as your offering to the goddess is usually in the cup, because it symbolizes the womb, or the cauldron symbolizes the womb. You can have wine or apple juice or apple cider. I use apple cider a lot in the fall. Or if you use kosher grape juice, there's a specific brand, which of course I cannot think of right now, that is made all naturally, and you know that because it has to be, when it's kosher, it has to be all natural, and it tastes like you just plucked those grapes right from the vine. So look for kosher grape juice. That works great. You can use a regular cup. Nobody says you have to use a fancy one with a stem. I like the way it looks better, and I was able to find all kinds of. Boy, you go to your thrift shop, you should be able to find, glasses with a stem on it. Wine glasses. Use a wine glass and paint with a paintbrush, or draw with a permanent marker on there, the goddess or a pentacle, whatever. Okay, now, here's another idea. I think I said this in one of my videos last week, but this is a mandala that I colored with a colored pencil out of a coloring book that I bought at the thrift shop and cut out, and I used this for a crystal grid. I put it down, and I have gotten little crystal chips, which are much cheaper. You can buy like a whole thing of little crystal chips for a couple bucks usually on eBay. If you want, I have one eBay seller that I actually go through because I know she's very reputable and very cheap. And so any crystal chips that I have gotten normally from her. And if you want that, I will try to remember to link her shop in the down bar here. But you then have one stone that represents the center, and you pick out stones that go along with your intention and put them in various places around the mandala, and that creates a crystal grid, which then creates more intention for that intention, spell, whatever you're working towards. That's a great cheap way to go. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about today is substitutions. So you should know that any spell work that you want to do, any intention setting, any healing, any altar, anything that you are doing to create energy towards a cause, there are always substitutions. There are some very basic things that can go for anything. And let me explain. Here's what I'm talking about. What do I do with them? Here they are. White candles. If you look up correspondences of candle colors, you can see that in magic, most people assign a correspondence to each color. So normally red candles can be used for fire energy, for love, for passion, for anger, for blood, for anything like that. You can use a red candle, and that will build that intention for that. If you don't have a red candle, you can substitute a white candle for any other color, and it will work the same. When you are lighting that candle, you just talk about in your head what intention you're using. So let's say I'm doing a love spell and I cannot find a red, pink candle anywhere, and I have white candles. I can light a white candle and say, okay, this candle I'm lighting, I am imbuing love, passion, energy into this candle. And as I light it, that's the intention set that I want to go into it, and the intention that I want to grow is that love and passion energy, and light the candle. And that's what that candle represents. White can be substituted for any color candle. White. Another substitution is, oh, I forgot one thing. This is a journal. A blank journal that I got at the Dollar Tree. You can find these at Goodwill and thrift shops all over. Even if they have 1 or 2 pages written on them, rip them out. I have a million journals. I buy a ton of them, but this one literally was $1 and it's brand new, and you can use it as a book of shadows, as a tarot journal, as whatever you want. I have steno pads everywhere. Everywhere. I more than I can count, with all kinds of spell work in it, with all kinds of herbal correspondences, with all that kind of stuff. You do not have to have a big, huge, fancy book of shadows. I have 2. One that is a whole bunch of printed out pages from Pinterest that I liked as book of shadow stuff, and one that I am creating as I go, which I'll try to show that at some point someday. But Dollar Tree, quick and easy. Okay, crystals. When you want to use crystals to set an intention, clear quartz, any clear quartz crystal. This happens to be a cluster. Any clear quartz crystal. Beautiful, ugly, not that pretty. This one is actually a singing quartz. It's hard to tell unless I pull out another singing quartz. Big, little. This one is actually has rutile in there, that gold threading. Any clear quartz can be substituted for any other intention. Clear quartz is programmable, so any intention that you want to set, like rose quartz is for love, for good feelings, for heart chakra, for all that kind of stuff. I can't find a piece of rose quartz. I can grab a piece of quartz and say, I'm imbuing this piece of clear quartz with love energy, passion energy, with good feeling, with heart chakra energy, and using that on my altar to represent love energy. plink, put it down on your altar. It is representing love energy now. You have now programmed that with love energy. So, substitution for any crystal is clear quartz. So start getting it. Anytime you see clear quartz is usually pretty cheap. The only caveat I will have, I have gotten clear quartz from China. I do not get a lot of crystals from China because they have gotten very good at faking crystals. Clear quartz is one that they usually don't have to though. So I've gotten bags of little clear quartz points that are all real clear quartz points from China. Usually that is one that's okay, and it's still really cheap. Rosemary. Any herb. Rosemary, this happens to be mine that's dried out, so I don't want to kill it, but rosemary can be used in substitution for any herb. Any spell that you have that you need and you do not have that herb, rosemary can be substituted for that herb. Same way, set that intention. This rosemary I am imbuing with this kind of energy, and I want that rosemary to grow this kind of energy when it goes into my cauldron. It can be used as a substitution for any kind of herb. And finally, rose. Rose petals can be substituted for any kind of flower energy. So, a whole rose. For jasmine, let's say your spell calls for jasmine and you do not have jasmine. You can take rose petals or a rose and imbue that with jasmine energy. I am taking these rose petals and imbuing them with the energies of jasmine so that they can then intensify and grow that jasmine energy on my altar. Plink. There's your jasmine energy. So those are the substitutions that you can use for anything. Anything. Keep in mind that intention is everything. Intention is what witchcraft is all about. If you intend to have something, I just gather a whole bunch of supplies that I think holds that intention, and that creates more energy and imbues that entire altar with that kind of energy, and then I release that energy out into the world, into the universe to go do my work for me. That's what we need. That doesn't mean then you're done. You don't have to work towards it anymore. You're going to put that prosperity altar up and say, oh good, thank goodness, I'm not going to work anymore because I put that prosperity energy out there. Now I'm done. No, it doesn't work that way. But it does help to build that energy, and we know what energy we're putting out there is what is attracted to us. That's science. Like energies attract like energies. Just to be aware, stormwater. I put out a pot the other day. We had a beautiful rainstorm. Hail came down and everything. I put out a pot real quick so I could get some stormwater. Stormwater can be used when you need a boost of energy for really any kind of work. But be careful if you're using stormwater in particular that you really want that energy working quickly and powerfully, because that's what the storm energy does. It can be used for hexes, although I don't talk about that kind of stuff very much on my channel. And it can be used for banishings, and it can be used for malevolent kind of spells, and it can be used for protection and boosts of energy and life-changing kind of stuff. Use stormwater. Put out water, or put out a pot when it's a great rainstorm. Collect that rainwater. You can use rainwater and turn it into moon water. Put it out at the full moon. Imbue the full moon's energy into that. I keep moon water. I keep water. I know it sounds funny. I put little chips of a couple of crystals that I think hold water energy at the bottom of a blue jug, and I keep water. I keep earth water. Again, a couple little crystals. I keep fire water. I keep air water. Then anything that I need potion wise, I have that kind of energy. I can also add to that. That's what it is, guys. Go out for a walk and pick up leaves of oak leaves. Oak leaves are amazing to imbue energy into. Maple leaves, acorns, rocks, pine needles. Go outside and use what you have around you. That's my best hint. If you have anything else you have questions about, go ahead and ask me. I will try to answer in the next installment of this Beginner Witch series that I'm starting. Blessings.